was once all about the race. If you weren't ahead, you were out of the game. But when everything stopped, we saw the chance to change the game and begin a new path. This time, the bottom line won't be our finish line. This time, we'll chase investments whose real interest is care. This time, every step we take doesn't just change the world, but protects it. This time, our tech advancements will propel human betterment. This time, we will run the longer race, because the most rewarding pursuit is leaving a world greater than what it is. It was once all about the race. If you weren't ahead, you were out of the game. But when everything stopped, we saw the chance to change the game and begin a new path. This time, the bottom line won't be our finish line. This time, we'll chase investments whose real interest is care. This time, every step we take doesn't just change the world, but protects it. This time, our tech advancements will propel human betterment. This time, we will run the longer race, because the most rewarding pursuit is leaving a world greater than what it is.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Business World Insights, a special series on improving cybersecurity in a digital world. My name is RJ Balinbin, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's session on how businesses can ensure that as digitalization continues to expand across the world, so do cyber risks. Cybersecurity needs to be a critical focus on and therefore needs to be constantly enhanced. The digital realm encompasses many doors that lead to abundant opportunities for every individual and institution. But in this vast space full of possibilities also lurk cyber threats that could attack and disrupt digital operations and damage an organization. Navigating the digital world thus stipulates arming oneself with tools, strategies, and knowledge on cybersecurity. Since 2020, more people and businesses have gone digital because of the pandemic. This has led to a rise in cyber incidents. That year, malware and ransomware Attacks soared by 358% and 435 respectively, according to the Global Risks Report 2022 of the World Economic Forum. The report also stated that cybersecurity threats are growing and outpacing society's ability to effectively prevent or respond to them. Today, we are joined by some of the most sought after personalities in the country's cyber scene. We'll be hearing from each speaker in turn before diving into a free flowing panel discussion. Before we call them on screen, just a reminder to our audience that we'll be taking audience questions later during the Q&A. So be sure to send them in the comments section, which our team will be monitoring. So, now without further ado, let me introduce our speakers. Regarded as one of the stewards of a pioneering and responsive regulatory approach on technology and innovation, Mel's career in the BSP, spanning decades of supervisory experience, has not only witnessed the dramatic advancement of technology in the Philippines, but more importantly, has played a key role in shaping the regulatory mindset towards a more progressive approach on technology risk and innovation supervision. He has taken a highly critical and challenging role in the BSP as head of the department, primarily responsible for supervision of technology and cybersecurity risk, including emerging technologies. He continues to spearhead various cybersecurity reforms aimed at enhancing the BSP's cybersecurity oversight and supervision, as well as promoting a secure and cyber resilient financial ecosystem through close coordination and partnerships with industry associations, regulatory counterparts, and other relevant stakeholders. As new as newer technologies continue to revolutionize today's society, Mel is yet again at the forefront of regulatory enhancements in digital banking, supervision in key areas of open finance, cloud services, and regtech and subtech. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Mr. Melchor T. Plabasan. Mel, you have the
Yeah,
screen.
yeah. Thank you so much, RJ, and to my fellow speakers and media friends, and of course to all our online viewers. Magandang umaga po. First and foremost, the BSP commends Business World for this timely and relevant discussion. I think the theme, improving cybersecurity in the digital world, could not be more fitting as we are all experiencing rapid digitalization in almost all facets of our lives. And on the part of the BSP, in terms of on the side of the financial sector, we really have observed exponential growth in terms of the use of digital financial services. And we have seen how vibrant our e-commerce sector is. And I think on the downside, we have also seen an unprecedented increase or growth in terms of the number of threat actors that are trying to exploit the ongoing migration or digitalization. And of course, given all of these developments, given the growth in the number of digital touch points, there is now what we call more elbow room on the part of these threat actors, or what we call attack surface, by which they can operate. I would like to share, I think, an interesting tidbit. According to a study conducted by I think it was the University of Maryland. According to their study, a hacker attack happens every 39 seconds. So this shows how rampant cyber attacks are globally. And we all agree that cyber attacks cannot be fully eliminated. In fact, everyone can be a subject of cyber attack. And given that, let's say, Internet of Things, given that most of our devices have embedded systems, and of course all the vulnerabilities in the wild, including zero-day vulnerabilities, and on our part, the BSP recognizes the role of cybersecurity in terms of fostering digital innovation, and more importantly, in terms of maintaining financial stability. That's why in fostering cybersecurity and in ensuring that the financial sector remains resilient, we have what we call this CARE approach. CARE stands for CARE, CARE. CARE stands for Comprehensive, Agile, Risk-Based, and Engaging Approach. So this particular approach covers several areas, including regulatory policy framework that also includes proactive monitoring through our surveillance capabilities, and of course, promoting resilience through our what we call supervisory and oversight activities. And of course, we are also into a lot of what we call cyber awareness and digital financial literacy, because as we have always advocated, or as we have always reiterated, cybersecurity or e-safety is I think everyone's responsibility. So the regulators, the financial players themselves, the businesses, the banks, even the consumers themselves, they all play a key role in ensuring a robust, safe, and secure digital finance ecosystem. That's all, RJ. Thank you. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Mel, and for pointing out that cybersecurity is indeed everyone's responsibility. Now we have our second speaker, Alan S. Cabanlong. He is an ASEAN engineer, a professional electronics engineer, and a graduate of Master of Science in Global Information Telecommunication Studies at the Waseda University in Tokyo, Japan. He is also an alumnus of the George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies in Germany and the United States Telecommunications Training Institute for Cybersecurity Studies. Alan is regarded or regularly invited to speak at ICT and cybersecurity international conferences and is one of the contributors to the published book in the United States titled Law, Policy, and Technology. So from November 2016 to July 2019 at the DICT, Alan served DICT as Assistant Secretary. So during his stint as Assistant Secretary for Cybersecurity and Enabling Technologies, he authored the National Cybersecurity Plan 2022 of the Philippines, designed the organization structure, and was concurrently designated as the Executive Director 5 of the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordination Center upon its conception. So from 2016 to 2019, Alan was able to transform cybersecurity processes in the government by designing and implementing the Cybersecurity Management Systems Platform of the Philippines, or the CMSP. CMSP is the National Cybersecurity Operations Center of the Philippines, the first of its kind for the Philippine government, handled by the Philippines National Computer Emergency Response Team of the DICT. So, Alan is also a recipient of various local and international awards in the field of electronics engineering, information communications technology, and so on. So, Alan is a resident fellow of the Philippine Public Safety College of the Department of Interior of Local Government. He is currently taking up Doctor of Public Administration at the University of the Philippines National College of Public Administration and Governance. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Alan S. Cabanlong. Alan, thank you for joining us. Good
Thank you
morning.
so much. Good morning. Thank you to all the viewers. Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Good morning. Uh, Thank you, Business World, for having me here. You know, cybersecurity landscape is constantly changing, evolving, and thus become more complex because of the interconnectedness of the network and devices across the globe. With the advent of the internet and network technologies, data has become easier to access, process, store, and transmit. You know, electronic transactions are now a way of life, and the internet has become a vital tool, especially during this pandemic. The convenience, comfort, and ease of information, whether at home or now office or mobile, has also become the gateway for criminals to intrude into our systems and steal our information and use it for fraudulent and criminal activities. So the advancement of computers and IT has been very fast. The speed of technology propagation was unprecedented, and its penetration of human activities has never before been seen. For instance, ICT has brought vast benefits to identifying COVID 19 variants and rapidly detecting cyber threats through machine learning and artificial intelligence. Unfortunately, computers are also used for bad things. They're used to initiate cyber attacks, perhaps. No? Computers are also used in modern financial applications, such as transferring billions of pesos anonymously through online bank accounts and criminals and warlords. We are very honored that Mel is there to regulate these kinds of transactions. No? So, nonetheless, the Philippine government has to be consistent with its program of national development by ensuring national security and intensifying law enforcement by addressing cybersecurity as an emerging critical area. So ICT has become now an integral part of the management and operations of the government. And it's important to build capacity and support the establishment of a knowledge-based organizations. So these knowledge-based organizations, such as business process outsourcing companies, telecommunications companies, the private sector, and government agencies, are considered critical information infrastructure as defined in the National Cybersecurity Plan of 2022 that, when attacked, could cripple the political, economic, social, and technological state of the nation. So the importance of ICT is also emphasized by mutual dependencies and interconnectedness among the various digital infrastructure. Although ICT offers vast opportunities for national development, it also brings cyber threats that confront national security. So ICT has also become a tool that can be weaponized to perpetrate crimes and terrorism. Cyber warfare that could result to a kinetic warfare that would involve destruction of properties and loss of lives. With these common issues and challenges governments around the world are facing, there is an urgent need to collectively combat these cyber threats and share relevant information with the stakeholders in both public and private sector. So a global and domestic cybersecurity network governance. No? So in other countries like US and Russia, Israel, Japan, and Singapore, cybersecurity is treated as one of the major drivers of economic development and national security. These countries have implemented cyber policies and technical strategies to detect, prevent, and deter cyber threats through their national cybersecurity infrastructure. Sa Pilipinas po ba, handa na ba tayo? Okay? Their government has invested in cybersecurity infrastructure to protect its people and sovereignty from cyber threats. Law enforcement is equipped with legal and technical skills to fight cyber crimes. Homeland Security is ready to detect and prevent cyber threats, and the military is prepared enough to face and deter cyber attacks. So in 2016, the Philippine government, through the DICT Office of the Assistant Secretary for Cybersecurity and Enabling Technologies, and the Office of the Executive Director of the CICC, launched the first Philippine National Cybersecurity Strategy, or the National Cybersecurity Plan 2022, as mandated by Republic Act 10175, as amended by Republic Act 10844, with the vision of having a trusted and resilient information infrastructure. One of its programs that was implemented in 2018 under the key imperative protection of government network is the establishment of the National Cybersecurity Operations Center, operated by the National Computer Emergency Response Team of the DICT. Ang tanong, saan na ba tayo ngayon? Where are we now? After those programs that was implemented, where are we now and where are we going? Okay? This key imperative plays a major role to identify and detect any potential threats through the analysis of information and real-time coordination with the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center for cybercrime matters. So that is why we need to delineate functions. We cannot act as one. Sorry, we cannot act as if that we are doing some activity that is not under a mandate. So that is why cybersecurity and cybercrime, they have a separate entities. No? So the data and information gathered across the vertical and horizontal areas of the government, public and private sectors are analyzed by the National Cybersecurity Operations Center on a regular basis by a technically competent analyst and network forensic expert. So dapat po ganun yung framework niya. No? So threat detection is one of the methods to prevent cyber threats, and the information that are collected from the detection system will be used to build a defense in-depth solution to protect the network information infrastructure from cyber attack. It is on the premise that the principle of detection is the key to prevention. That's why the National Operations Center operates. Anyways, I think those are the things that we need to look into as we go along with this seminar, with this forum. No? And I think I just need to disturb your mind. Saan na ba tayo ngayon? Where are we now? Let's look back at the implementation of the National Cybersecurity Plan. What has been implemented? What was not implemented? What are the barriers of the implementation? Kasi andyan yung plano implement mo na lang. Next, the leadership and the role of the government. Ano ba yung role ng government pagdating sa cybersecurity? Are we putting the right people to handle cybersecurity? What are the organizational challenges? Is it technical or political? Or maybe talker ka lang or doer ka ba? No? So you go back to basics. Do we have a clear definition of cybersecurity and cybercrime prevention, or even cyber warfare or cyber defense? No? So the strategy, policy, programs, and plans of the government will depend on that definition. Otherwise, if you cannot define those things, then magkaproblema po tayo. Next is cyber workforce development. Okay, you need to uplift the morale and welfare of the people so that the government, mababa na ng sweldo, aalis pa yung tao, so wala ka ng tao. So ngayon, you will now go into the managed services. But anyways, let's talk about that later. I will not, my time is too much now. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Business World Insights, for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alan, for pointing out on where we are now in the cybersecurity plan. Now, let's proceed to our third speaker. Francisco Cocoy Claraval is the Vice President for Partner Ecosystems for Globe Business Enterprise Group. He is also the commercial lead for the group's cybersecurity business. Prior to this role, Kokoy was the enterprise group's vice president for product development and engineering. He also became head of product development and management of Globe's consumer products in broadband and mobile. Aside from these, he held various positions in the areas of sales, pre-sales, product, and business development of Globe Business. His other work experience includes stints in Cisco Systems, Motorola, and Accenture. He has an MBA from Ateneo and is a cum laude graduate of electrical engineering from St. Louis University. When not solving ICT business problems, he writes songs, curates playlists, and performs as an indie Christian artist. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Francisco Cocoy Claraval. Cocoy, good morning.
Good morning. I didn't know that those other stuff regarding my music was included in the CV. But anyway, thanks everyone for inviting Globe
Sure.
in this event. Anytime there's a cyber event, we always try to make it a point to be heard. No, kasi I think as what Alan was saying, this is like topmost urgent priority item that we should be talking about as a nation, and of course in the different companies that you operate with from the audience. So let me just give a few thought starters. So can we share my? Let's go straight to the second slide. Okay, thank you so much. Um, we we constantly monitor what's happening, and here are some latest statistics on what's happening in the past 6 months of the year. Obviously, 42% increase in global weekly cyber threats. Um, as more companies, nations go digital, expect this to happen. Obviously, what Alan was saying about what the pandemic did, it accelerated digitalization, it accelerated remote home, it also accelerated cyber threats, because obviously you have the good guys and also you have the bad guys. Now, in the Philippines, we also saw an average of about 2,100 weekly attacks in Philippine companies and organizations, both government and private sector. Now, mind you, this is actually higher than the standard in Southeast Asia. So we have to be really worried about this, because there's a lot more happening in the Philippines compared to the rest of Southeast Asia in terms of cyber threats. And if you look at the different segments of companies and government, we actually see government as actually the uh, top industry, if we call it an industry, being attacked, followed by manufacturing, and then followed by finance and banking. Then of all these attacks, it still is through email. We have known this for quite some time now, that most attacks happen through email, and the top usual attack is through attachments. So today we still see email from like Excel attachments as the top, followed by Word documents. So be careful out there, especially when you're opening these unsolicited emails. Now, in terms of the exploits, 64% of Philippine organizations, the top exploit has still been the remote code execution. So again, through email or web, actually RCE is really more happening on web when you click on something on a website, diba? So mag-ingat tayo, because all these things really cause damage to ourselves and our companies. The top malware in the Philippines is still XMR. So those of you in the crypto industry, I am a crypto enthusiast, but be careful, because a lot of these mining kind of applications, there's a lot of malware in those. So don't do that, diba? So can we go to the next slide? The point here is the threat is continues to increase. Now, what do you need to do? Okay, so hindi naman pwedeng wala tayong gagawin, di ba? So let's focus on the solution to the problem. Best practices. There's some very basic ones. Know your posture. Conduct a security assessment of your company or your agency, because you need to know where you're starting from. And then once you've done that, make sure you have a zero trust framework plan. There's so many solutions out there and so many companies that offer these kinds of services, but make sure that you have a zero trust framework and adopt it. Now, ito yung lagi kong na-encounter when I talk to customers eh. Most customers try to do it per product and try to assemble it. Now, what we realize is, don't really choose a solution or a product. Look for a strategic partner that can understand your needs end to end. And the point below here is, consider also that it is very tough to get the right people. Alan made mention that earlier, di ba? We need the right people to do these kinds of things. Globally, how much is it now? I think the last time I recall, it was over 3 million cybersecurity jobs that are open. So actually, for those people looking for a job, cybersecurity is actually one of the best jobs because there's not much people qualified. That's why things like managed security services are actually booming right now, because the expertise is there for you to be able to avail of it. And you don't have to worry about the technology. You don't have to worry about making sure you keep the people, upskill them, and train them. Next slide, please. And here's a quick summary. I won't go into much more detail, but you could see here that in terms of the Philippines, these are sort of the areas where a lot of companies are now looking into. I just want to highlight the security orchestration and automation, because as you would see, for you to be able to respond quickly to incidents, you have to automate that. And that's why a lot of companies are now looking into investing in SOAR technologies. let's move on. I'm just conscious of the 5 minutes. I think I'm a little over. Um, Now, why is Globe talking about these things? It's very simple because Globe is not thinking like a telco anymore. We're still a telco. If you look at the Globe in the middle, that is still the heart of the operation. But Globe is now really a group of companies in different areas of ICT, media, e-commerce, ad tech, of course, fintech. Everybody knows GCash. There's a big customer base. There's a big base where you can get a lot of insights in terms of transactions and making sure that they're all protected. Um, so that's really the reason. And in the specific area of cybersecurity, which is my last slide, let's move on. Um, Here, I'd like to highlight that Globe, first of all, has a very mature and world-class internal security operations center that protects our own network and assets. We have been That has been our core in terms of building our own cybersecurity practice and our own local SOC. Recently was ISO certified. We have a growing list of customers in different areas of user endpoint security, cloud applications, and all of the different services, whether that's governance, risk management, consulting, and incident management response. To the left, we think of ourselves as curating the best solutions that customers may need. And you see a flavor of some of the partners here in this slide. And I'll stop here. And I know there's going to be a lot more conversations later. But again, thank you, everyone. And looking forward to our open discussion.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kokoy, for sharing with us some of the points that you are doing there at Globe. So now, our fourth speaker is Ms. Ana Margarita Miran Sanchez. She's the Vice President for Strategy and Engagement at PhilInsure, one of the top insurance broking firms in the country today, leading innovation in cyber insurance and other specialisms. Her work with PhilInsure builds on her years of experience as founder and CEO of Future by Design Pilipinas, focused on growth strategies for corporate and non corporate entities, organizational and leadership development. Her present work with PhilInsure also draws from innovation strategies and initiatives she has led across multi-sectoral groups in the Philippines, including those for the power generation businesses of conglomerates such as Metro Bank and PhilInvest, the AFP, especially with the Philippine Marine Corps, our ministries of education and social welfare, the religious sector, and even with the likes of the ASEAN for advocacies focused on the rights of women and children, education, and sustainable development. As part of the cybersecurity team of PhilInsure, she joins us today to provide a viewpoint and share with us the value of having insurance as a financial safety net against cyber attacks and threats. Joining us today, Ms. Ana Margarita Miran Sanchez. Ms. Miran, you have the screen.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Very happy to be with you today. Thank you, Business World. So my co-panelists have basically shared with us many things already that we need to consider so that we are cyber resilient, so to speak. No, I'm here to share with you another way, which is through cyber insurance. So let's go ahead with the next slide, please. So I think it was Mel and also Alan mentioned it, and even Kokoy mentioned it, that there were many buzzwords under COVID-19, and one of them was digitalization. Many industries, most industries and sectors were faced with the challenge of really pivoting fast to make this happen because we needed to respond to our consumers, to consumers' needs, to changing behavior of clients, and match these with our services. And the pace of digitalization has actually outpaced the capacity of our organizations to cope with it. No, please go ahead. And this trend of moving everything from the web, moving everything to the web on the cloud, will continue to boom in the next 12 years. And we should expect that whatever data we have online is going to be 12 times that in the next 12 years. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that? In fact, please proceed to the next slide. Statistics says that we're going to hit something like to over 2,000 zettabytes in 13 years. A zettabyte is a billion terabytes. I cannot even imagine what that looks like. But global data creation will hit that level. So, which means more exposure also to the cybercrime, the cyber threats, the cybersecurity risks that were already mentioned by my co-panelists. We keep putting things on the cloud, on the web, because that's really the way forward. It's easier to collaborate that way. There's more accessibility to things, to services, ease of doing business, and that really is the way forward. And I understand. Please click to show the other image there. And I understand that even the devices that we have will also double by 2025. Our interconnection to from appliance to smartphones to our cars, etc. That's gonna double. But with that growth, you also have bad actors finding ways, new entry points to exploit that. And that's why it's so important to really improve our cybersecurity, particularly for the Philippines, because we rank like ninth least cybersecure in Asia, no, as of the last survey. And I'm sure that with this boom, everybody has the same question in mind, but we don't really discuss it that often. Next slide, please. And I'm happy we're talking about it today. Is how secure is our data? How secure is our data? What measures have we taken to make sure they're protected, they're not breached, they cannot be stolen? God forbid that someone hacks into your smart car while you're driving it. Can you imagine what could happen, right? Or your smartphone or whatever other form of communication you have. We don't realize it, but all of our gadgets, all of our tools are susceptible to that. Even the Pentagon got hacked. I'm sure you also heard, like sometime last week, Philippine Airlines had a breach as well for their membership data that was in the papers. And apparently that was an attack on a third-party service provider affecting other airlines, not limited to PAL. So we're faced with that reality on a week-to-week basis. We keep hearing these things about, laptops being recalled for more cybersecurity. And the breaches are more rampant, more and more. Can we go to the next slide? If we have the question of how secure is our data, the other question is, can we afford the loss of our data? Because it costs money when our systems are breached. The cost of repairing our data systems, the cost of restoring the data, that's something that each business, every business owner should consider. And even an organization, our government has to really consider the loss of data as well. No, as Kokoy mentioned, government is like a primary sector or group that needs to consider how we approach cybersecurity from an ecosystem perspective. All players need to be involved. In fact, Allianz, in the 11th risk survey of Allianz, they mentioned that cyber incidents have already beaten or trumped business interruption, natural catastrophes, and even the pandemic. It's number one concern or risk for businesses this 2022, and mostly affecting our supply chains. Having our supply chains broken is something that is like 44% risk for this year and moving forward. I think this is the second year that cyber incidents has been identified as that. So we've heard breaches in the supply chain sector. I think you may have heard about what happened in the US in July with a third-party software provider experiencing ransomware attack, and 1,500 organizations that availed of that software actually got affected, including a fuel company, a food distribution company. And that's what Kokoy was pointing out, that when you select providers, you also have to be very discerning about it, because there is a cost to losing our data. Can we proceed to the next slide? And this is the cost globally. No, regardless of your company size, whether you're a small, medium enterprise or a large enterprise, the average globally is 200,000 US dollars, which is about 11 million pesos. And that's huge. That's an insane amount if you're a small business owner. So the SMEs in Asia Pacific are actually very exposed. Kokoy touched on this a little bit earlier. And the fear is real for these mid-sized businesses because even Cisco came out with a study that 56% of Asia Pacific SMEs or SMBs have suffered a cyber incident in the last 12 months. And for the Philippines, the cyber incidents have increased by 53% under COVID. So that's huge. And when we lose our data, please proceed to the next slide. When we lose our data, we're not only talking about data recovery or data system recovery, no costs, direct costs to that. We're also talking about business interruption. We're also talking about reputational and brand costs, and also legal and regulatory costs. Because if your customer data gets breached, you get fined, right? Because you didn't protect the information if you're a business. So, based on the Cybercrime Act, based on the Data Protection Act, there are fines involved there as well. Next slide, please. So while the first line of defense for cybersecurity is our people, is humans, ourselves, right? We have to be very cybersecurity aware. For our data, which is voluminous, the preventive processes like what Cyber Guardians mentioned earlier with Alan and other cyber risk solutions that Kokoy mentioned earlier, there's one other safety net that you can go to, which is insurance. So at PhilInsure, we developed something called CyberSecure. Now, I'm giving this as an example, not to just push the product, but to also as a personal advocacy as well, because I think more and more insurers need to go into this space. Next slide, please. It's been very hard to place insurance for cyber. And the reality is we need it because it should be our fiscal response to any cyber breaches that we may encounter. And cyber insurance has been challenging locally because there's no market support for it. We have to get international support for it. It's often very tedious, and the prices have gone up because of the increase in cyber incidents. No, so more and more participation is required if you want to insure yourself. Next slide, please. But with cybersecure and this model, we hope more and more people more and more groups can emulate. Go ahead, please. Just show all the bullets. There's actually an easier way. Neo Insurance, which is more of a movement rather than a service, is a way of delivering insurance in an easier way. So there's a platform to it. We cut the process gap, the access to protection by allowing companies to self-serve, to go online, do a risk assessment, which is so important to know, how vulnerable is your website, and things like that. And you get an automatic quotation right on the platform, and it makes the process easy because usually if it's cyber insurance, it's voluminous pages of things that you have to go through. But here we've made it kind of plug and play, and I hope the marketplace becomes more open like that. In our platform, at least, there's several options for enterprises, particularly for SMEs who are the most hit, most vulnerable at this point in time. And it makes it easier. At the same time, if, God forbid, there is a cybersecurity breach for your company, at least insurance will be able to accompany you in terms of the process. How do you respond to via media? How do you manage your public relations? How do you respond directly to the breach and things like that? So if you have an insurer and a broker that can help you, then the process becomes easier because it can be easier. But at the end of the day, ultimately, protection is still us being cyber security aware. Next slide, please. So the other speakers have already shared various ways of becoming cyber resilient, and I hope we take note of that. And I look forward to the conversations this morning, maybe more on the government efforts to curtail cybercrime and other solutions that my co-panelists have to offer. And I think that's it. We just need to evolve our cybersecurity solutions together and be cyber resilient together. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Miren, wow. Now, let's proceed to our conversation. Let's have all our speakers back on screen. So, hello everyone. I'd like to keep this portion of our session today flowing. So, please feel free to jump in at any point with any insights or comments you might have. So, let's proceed with our first question. Let's start with providing an overview. Although many of you have already mentioned what we're doing as a company in a respective company. So, what's the current state of cybersecurity in the Philippines, really? What are the threats the country has faced and challenges towards strengthening cybersecurity so far?
RJ, can I start?
Yes, sir, sir. Sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I would like to I would like to jump off from what Miran mentioned, which is quite scary. That we are ninth, I think, in Asia
Least
that
secure, yeah.
is secure. Yeah, yeah. So I think in terms of cybersecurity, the Philippines, I can say, as a nation, as a whole, is still kind of evolving. So given that there are varying levels, I mean, different sectors would have varying levels of cyber maturity. And in terms of, let's say, legislation, there are still some pending legislations or measures right now which can help address the known gaps in terms of addressing cybersecurity, like cyber threats, like the SIM registration act. We have the anti-mule account act, which the BSP is of course fully supporting, which the BSP is supporting. Now, um, we have I mentioned this to Alan when we attended a summit in DC. While the Philippines has a cyber crime prevention act, we still have yet to enact a cyber security law, which is essentially which would clearly delineate the responsibilities, let's say, of the government, of the private sector, in terms of protecting our critical infrastructure. Although the one developed by Alan when he was still with the ICT, the National Cybersecurity Plan, also identifies these critical sectors that need to be protected. But again, we believe that this should be enacted into law so that because our co-panelists will, I'm sure, would agree with me that cybersecurity is a very expensive endeavor. So right, so that there's steady source of funding, there's steady source of fund that would finance activities related to protecting our systems. And in terms of in terms of the financial sector, I believe it's a known, it's recognized already at least in the Philippines, that the financial sector is one of the most mature in terms of cybersecurity. But then again, admittedly, despite the billions of pesos spent by the industry annually, we would still hear news about certain institutions and their clients being subjected to certain types of attacks or frauds, which is, uh, I mean, because as mentioned earlier by Kokoy, the financial sector is also one of the most targeted sectors. This is where money is, right? So that this is a very targeting the financial sector is a very lucrative business. And on the other question, RJ, with respect to some of the threats that we have actually experienced based on the data in the BSP, so at least for 2021, the top three incidents include card not present, fraud, phishing, and of course, account takeover or identity theft. And the same trends were also observed in 2022. Again, with varying, let's say, delivery methods and techniques. My co-panelists can add to that.
Yeah, sure. Anyone who would like to add to that?
I want to
Mr.
add lang
Yeah.
to Mel's point kasi we have been working closely with the PSP and the banks and
Mm.
in trying to really curtail lalo na yung phishing. You mentioned that, no? I think one of the things that yung state natin today in the Philippines is we need to really increase awareness and education of the threat, problem, and how you protect yourselves. It's we see companies that are big, that invest a lot, pero they see the problem as a regular IT problem. This issue is a board level kind of discussion. It has to
Mm.
be elevated to that level for them to actually push the agenda down. So that is one of the things that we are really trying to help out in terms of awareness. So, yon, I think that is a major agenda. And I think si Alan also mentioned in terms of how to get government citizens to be aware. So, yun lang gusto kong idagdag doon. We have to increase awareness and education.
I want to build on what Kokoy said, because in the corporate sector, there's great awareness. The larger enterprises have greater awareness because there's a lot at risk, no. But in SME level, I think we need to help the SMEs in terms, how do they manage it at their level, and also individual, because your mobiles can be attacked, diba, and things like that based on your behavior. So I think I don't know how we can do that like on a multi-sectoral level, but that would be my question. Like, how do you promote cybersecurity awareness at an individual level? Because it starts with the individuals, and that's reinforced by corporate. But if you don't belong to corporate or any of the organizations that have high cybersecurity awareness, I think it has to be like a real public education kind of thing, no? Campaign. What are the things that you can do at your level to make sure that you can help make the Philippines more cyber resilient?
Actually, tama si Ana, sorry. So, tama si Ana. The government had cybersecurity awareness programs since 2017, uh, to 2016. So, we went to all the places actually, the LGUs, we coordinated with the academic sectors, and then we built that program because it's part of the National Cybersecurity Plan, one of the four key imperatives. The main issue, the main challenge now with the government is the implementation. All the plans are being rolled out already. Okay, all the guidelines and na po yan. The laws they have been created already. Although there are some laws that kailangan pa natin. But the question there is uh, how is that implemented? No? The implementation is the action that you need as government, as private sector, as stakeholders, as CSOs or civil society group or organization needs to do. No? Uh, para because it's a whole of society approach. Cybersecurity should be seen as a whole of society approach. Yes, tama
Yeah.
kayo. If it's awareness, the government can initiate awareness programs. But hanggang saan? Okay? Sino magko-continue? Okay, pagdating naman sa private sector, yes, the private sectors are also doing awareness programs. I remember when I was still with the police agency, with the Philippine National Police, I was invited oftentimes to give awareness to BPOs, no?
Mm.
Okay, and give cybercrime prevention education and awareness programs to the quality staff of the BPOs. So now the question, balik naman tayo sa government, the question there is, ano ba ang kapasidad ng government, okay, to implement this program? Because these are all talks. These are all talks. But the next question is, how do you do it? Yeah? How do you implement it? Actually, it's very easy to talk. No, we have these programs, etc. But how do you implement it? That's yun ang gauge. Do not measure is the implementation. Because if you just keep on talking, then you don't know how to implement it. Then it's well back to zero ka ulit. So I think in public administration, kailangan po natin na marunong technical sa mga bagay na yan so that it can be implemented. Otherwise, it will just stay there as a plan. Okay? Thank you.
All right. So what we've gotten so far is, from according to our speakers, what needs to be done. Enact cybersecurity law, awareness for both individual and industry levels, helping as SMEs and addressing challenges implementing cybersecurity plans of the government, which needs a whole of society approach. Now, our next question is focusing on the organizational level. How do they gear themselves up in responding and recovering from cyber attacks? Maybe we can talk about your experiences at your respective organizations. How do you
Uh,
do it?
can I speak, RJ?
Sure, sure, sir.
Look, in order to respond to cyber attack, you need coherent policy and technical support. Alam ko ng globe at ng BSP yan, you need to have a policy that supports your technology. Kaya nga, I've been advocating law, policy, and technology. Dapat at par yung tatlo na ito. So that if you implement your technology, it, it is really following the policies. So now, next question there is, we have the workforce. Uh, Workforce is very important. In the government, there's brain drain always, no? Because most of the people trained by the government, which only receiving 50,000 pesos, for example, if offered by Globe of 100,000 pesos, then of course alis yun. So that is very hard, you know. That's one of the biggest challenges ng government, you know, if you train someone. If uh, but if you keep on training, wala namang problem because it's a whole society approach. Then at least you can now create a workforce that was trained by the government or hired by the private sector, but the government is always training them, so that because our goal is to have a cyber resilient Philippines. And by doing that, it's not only the government or the private sector ang kailangan na maging solid on cybersecurity. It should be all of us. That is why um, cyber workforce development is very, very important in cyber resiliency.
Yeah, good point. Ano? Actually,
Yes,
Alan, I want to interject lang.
sure.
Uh, Back in the 90s, when I used to be with Cisco and it was the internet boom, di ba? Yeah, we just had our first internet link back in 1994 ba yun, and etc. Di ba? We were developing internet engineers or network engineers back then. There was very few. And we had programs with universities back then where we were building the skills of these really talented students. And eventually they became, the network heads, administrators, etc. I think in cyber, that is an area that something that is can be looked at by the education institutions also. Find a way to put some curriculum. I know some universities already have some courses, but make something tangible that people can already start learning even before they go into the labor force,
I
so
agree.
that we don't have a shortage.
I agree. Actually, Koy, in 2017, we already discussed that with the AMA University, and eventually, if you can observe now, yung PSM, no, the
Yeah.
Professional Science Masters in Cybersecurity of the Holy Angel University. It was conceived in 2017 by the late John Roero and his team, no, sa USAID Strike. And in the National Cybersecurity Plan, ginagawa po yan dati na we coordinate with the LGU, with the academe, no, for the integration of cybersecurity into the curriculum. So right now, I'm teaching in Ateneo for cybersecurity as an elective to computer science and IT. No? So meron din pong BS in cybersecurity is offered by AMA, and other schools now are now offering elective for engineering, for ComSci. So now at least the academe is now adaptive to that program, no? To help our country be cyber resilient. But tama po yun, but with the support of the telco, ay mas madali po natin ma-achieve yan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
RJ, yeah, I just want to add,
Yes.
since you were asking, what did we do at our level, no, organization
Yes.
wise? Like Alan was mentioning about workforce. I think for companies, there's, employee communications is always a thing, right? But sometimes there's too much communication. So specific to cybersecurity, you have to kind of incentivize it. Like there's some kind of an employee reward if you do this, if you're excellent at executing whatever. But there's also the other side to it, which is like accountability and disciplinary things, like penalties, 'di ba? For not making things secure at your level. If you've been found negligent, 'di ba? Parang yun doon sa law natin, if a corporation is found negligent, then it has to be assessed kung ano yung magiging accountability niya. But I agree, in the public education system, that it has to be start being embedded already. Actually, we're too late because it's happening right now. So in my mind, baka nga it's as simple as a public communications campaign, like, because we're what, how many percent is youth, millennial, in our society? A great percentage of it, 60-80%. Um, Baka i-TikTok lang natin yung how do you protect yourself. I don't know, but we have
We
to
should
be
get you in TikTok.
innovative.
Alam mo, I'll take you, Miran, on the challenge, ah. I'll
because
get you
the
on
because
TikTok
the
and do
youth
that.
spread it like wildfire, right? I mean, it's the easiest. They just want to watch video, and that's it. It might just be like that, just so for frontline protection. Go ahead, Kokoy.
I'm just saying that you are everyone here has the same parang ano mission, di ba? To
Yeah.
get cybersecurity elevated at a topic where people become really knowledgeable and careful.
Yes.
And that is why at the private ano naman in this dito sa side namin, telco was identified as a key item or for government strategy. We are doing our best to work with as many government agencies and fellow private companies also in spreading the awareness. So and making sure that we can do our part to respond as quickly as possible.
RJ, sorry, some quick points
Sure.
lang, no? So, yeah, yeah. I think regardless of whether you are in the private and government or government sector, this is gonna be a never-ending battle. No? I'm not being pessimistic. Eh.
Mm.
I'm looking lang at the at the silver lining. Probably kasi nga, Miren mentioned, I think it was Coco who mentioned about the workforce and the scarcity of workforce. Probably the good thing about this is that people like us, si Coco, si Miren, and si Alan will never be jobless, definitely. Yeah, but kidding aside, I would also highlight the importance of building a cybersecurity culture. So when you say culture, it's really embedding cybersecurity across all facets of the operations of organizations. So whether you're talking about technology, process, people, you have to build cybersecurity. And of course, Coco mentioned about cyber governance. You also need to make the board aware or sometimes to moderately scare them about the risk that the organization is facing so that they can also fully support the initiatives to strengthen the cybersecurity posture of their organization.
Yeah,
So one,
can I
go on,
sorry,
sir.
I just want ano kasi yung sinabi ni Mel was pretty spot on eh. I want to add that some practical tips for say companies, whether you're a big company or a small company, and whether you have invested on tools or people, or you maybe haven't invested. I want to share in our experience as in Globe in this industry. We've had a lot of success getting companies to subscribe to an incident management response retainer, as we call it. As telco, we were able to bundle it together with our internet products. Um, I mentioned that because it is an area where a company without sort of an incident management response retainer, when something happens to them, they will scramble from scratch on how to handle the situation. This retainer helps them in the event that something happens for them to be able to respond in an organized and a quick manner. So yung experience namin for the past what, maybe going 2 years now, this has been our number one selling cybersecurity service product. So yeah, I just wanted to share because it does help companies be at least have something when an incident happens. Versus I think Miran's pitch kanina, which is also, I'm very excited for their product. Kasi yung product naman nila, if something happens to you and yun na, na-breach ka na, di ba? Can you get something out of it? And the insurance side of thing, I think is it's actually quite innovative. It's the first I've heard in this part of the world.
Thank you, Coco. I was gonna say, you guys are talking about prevention, but there's a real need for recovery because it's happening. It's happening as we speak, right? So, what is our protection against that? So, I would advocate, more support, more local market support for insurance, for cybersecurity insurance, and really people being more aware that that's important. And particular to the SMEs. I'm so particular to the SMEs because we have what 88,000 a year of SMEs every year, new SMEs. No, so it's a growing sector, and we have to protect it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Going back to Mr. Kokoy, Globe Business, sir. If there are best practices that you would like to share with our, companies and organizations today, what would be these best practices are from the Globe Business perspective?
Okay, so let me just identify a couple. We did touch a lot of things already, Um, so just a couple off top of my mind. Number one, stay up to date on evolving threat landscape. Um, Keep your team as well as your executive stakeholders informed, because unless they know what's happening, they will not mind you. So you have to tell them, make sure they're aware. This is the threat landscape. Second is make sure you're able to assess the business impact of losing critical data. Have that BCP plan. When a cyber breach happens, where is your critical data? Do you have visibility? You have to make sure that you have that plan in place, and then make sure you review and test your incident response plan. Hindi pa pwedeng pag nangyari yun, na doon mo pa lang gagawin o ite-test, di ba? And maybe two more, or maybe three more best practices. Automate where possible. Um, this is where you invest on technologies like SOAR or all these kinds of tools with services around it that makes your job easier, right? And not, you don't have to do things as manual. There's a lot of technologies out there that automates this. And then make sure that you secure your cloud workloads. The cloud adoption in the Philippines is really going nuts. We have been monitoring this. We're working closely with AWS, Google, and of course Microsoft also. As you have more cloud adoption, security has to be alongside with it. So make sure yung cloud workloads nyo, make sure you protect your infra, your Kubernetes, your container images, all of the things that you do there, make sure that's connected. Um, and then finally, think about these questions ahead of time. I have a couple of questions. So let's say you suffered a ransomware. What would be the circumstances where you would pay a ransom, or would you even pay? Question. How would you maintain customer trust if the media was swirling with rumors that your stock price is sinking because of what happened? And then maybe a third one, what would happen if your CISO was incapacitated when that incident was discovered? How will you manage it? These are some of the things that think about it in advance so that you have the answer and be prepared when that happens. Maybe those are some inputs.
So that was a lot of, approaches, Mr. Kokoy. But is there such a thing as having the wrong approach to building a business cybersecurity posture?
Um, there is what I call an approach where you prepare for it. Now, whatever that approach is, whether it is um, based on a certain framework, there's a lot. This thing we're discussing is not new. There are a lot of organizations globally that have prescribed already what is their attack framework and all of this. How do you handle? The point is have the plan in place. And I think Mel was stressing that kanina, di ba? Make sure you have a plan so that in a strategy. And you'll be surprised many companies don't have those plan in place. So we need to help them. And we're here to also try to do what we can.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kaka. Now, this question is for everyone. Well, we have representatives coming from the government, and you guys mostly come from the private sector. But what exactly, to you, is the role of the government in improving our overall cybersecurity? How should it protect Filipino consumers, businesses, and even themselves from various cyber threats? What what should the government do at this time?
Alan, do you want to start?
Okay. Actually, thank you, Mel. Actually, it's you lead by example. If you lead by example, then everyone will follow. Because it's not, you know, I mean, it's absurd to direct the private sector to do some things in cybersecurity when you don't have it. You know? That's why
Mm.
the first uh, the first order of the day when I was there, when I was with the government, is to create a strategy. And after the strategy, you create the technology. You implement, you integrate the technology. You know? So and then you share information because cybersecurity is not to be kept with you only, by the government, for example, by the CSO, by the private sector. It should be shared to the cybersecurity community. Well, I'm talking about the threats, the cybersecurity threat, the cybersecurity modus operandi, the cybercrime operandi of the criminals. That should be shared, and that will create awareness. Now, and with that, with information sharing, the right strategy, with the right technology in place, I believe government as uh, will be the role model for everyone. No? Just like what other government is doing, like in the U.S. No? When they issue policy, they make sure that the technology and the critical elements of the policy are in place. No? Mahirap naman, naggagaya lang tayo sa ibang bansa, then if we implement it, hindi natin kaya. No? It should be, um, the role of the government should be at least, minimum standards are met, so that cybersecurity um, resiliency can be assured. Thank you.
All
Quick
right.
Thank
points lang, RJ.
Sure.
I would just like to add to what Alan mentioned. So your question about what the government can do, my answer there is a lot. A lot. The government can really do a lot because really the government plays a key role in terms of cybersecurity. I mean, ensuring the or strengthening the cybersecurity posture of the Philippines, no, so that we won't be ranked, as mentioned by Miren earlier, no. No, but I think I cannot speak on behalf of the all the government agencies, but basically the government kasi covers cybersecurity laws. The government covers regulations. The government also covers supervision, surveillance, law enforcement, and even prosecution. So in short, really the government has the power to set the direction of cybersecurity in the Philippines, to the extent allowed by law.
I agree with Mel that the government is pivotal naturally, but as earlier mentioned, it's really a whole nation approach because cybersecurity is a national security issue. It will impact on our economic sustainability, right? So while the government is key, the other stakeholders need to be engaged. So I'm curious about, like, for example, the National Cyber Crime Operations Center, whether it's a multi-sectoral group that actually responds to that. So maybe engage the other sectors more, to be able to come up with a solution because no one sector can respond to cybersecurity alone.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I want to add I think yung cooperation, Mel, that we did with banks and BSP, closer cooperation with the telcos. We have a lot of groups where we talk about, may mga spam, etc. We need to block this, etc. That is helping a lot, and do need to do more of those with different agencies. And kasi we know that telco is a critical infrastructure, no, in terms of, for these kinds of traffic to flow. So we will continue to support whatever the government needs, no. And I think kung may mga butas pa tayo in terms of maybe regulation, then maybe let's review those, di ba? Kasi I know that today medyo ano tayo eh. There's how do you call it? Cat and mouse tayo today. And just the number of spam messages that come in, we already have very sophisticated anti-spam tracking. Pero may lumulusot pa kasi these bad actors find really innovative ways to go around it. So we need the cooperation of government, banks, diba, telco, and other institutions.
Thank you very much, sir. So now let's not forget our MSMEs. I'd like to ask this last question to our representative from Phil Insure, Ms. Miran. So, ma'am, what ways and solutions are specifically available for our small businesses to secure themselves from cyber attacks, given their resources are, limited compared to large corporations?
Well, I would push for what we offer them, which is cybersecure. They can go to our platform. They can just look for it online. No, it's available, and it's easy because they just go through the process. Then they can get covered immediately. It's a hassle for SMEs to look for something within their price range in the market, but that's already available through us. But at the same time, I go back to the basic practice. How do they protect themselves? Make sure that they have their risks assessed properly by someone that is they can trust or that can really do the work, no, as Alan has mentioned and as Kokoy has also mentioned. That's the first step, is assess where you are. Look at where you can improve, right, to protect yourself. But it's a constant kind of battle because new and new things crop up. And favorite yung SME ngayon ng mga cyber attacks. So yun, just make sure you have the physical safety net as well, get insured, but do the processes diligently. Have an audit, do simulations if you have to protect your business, so you know where the holes are. Yeah.
Thank you, Miss Miran. So before we end today's session, I'd like to invite each of our speakers to share some final words with our audience. Perhaps we can start with again Miss Miran, and followed by Mr. Kokoy, Alan, and Melchor.
Okay, challenge is the first. But I would just say that cybersecurity starts with you, with each one of us. So be your own cybersecurity champion. Be aware. There's so much information on the net. Learn about it and protect yourself. Start with your family, right? If you have a small business, do it for yourself. That's it.
All right,
Yeah.
Mr.
So
Kokoy.
on my side, I've harped already, I guess, too much. Let's not beat the dead horse on education, assessment, whether yourself or the board, etc. But I think yung maybe key words lang for us to remember is let us make sure we secure the outcome. That has been our tagline kasi in Globe in cybersecurity. Secure the outcome. If you're a business and you are you have revenues, you have your sales, etc., your products, etc., your customer trust, secure those. Because if you don't secure the outcome, then why you're in the business? Why are you in the business in the first place? So many people think they run a business, they run a company, they do this, but they forget that they have to secure that. So just make sure to secure the outcome, and that's really my parting word.
Thanks, sir. Now, Mr. Allen.
Yeah, thank you, RJ. The most challenging tasks in cybersecurity are administration and governance. The threat landscape, as we know, is constantly changing. Therefore, the cybersecurity administration must be designed to be adaptive to these changes. Uh, And the government is expected to institutionalize information sharing activities among stakeholders and be able to change the mindset that cybersecurity should not be operated under the radar, but with the strong participation of the stakeholders. I believe by then we would achieve a cyber safe and cyber resilient Philippines, resulting from the whole of government and whole of society approach or network governance in the 21st century of public administration. Thank you.
Yes. Now, Mr. Melchor.
Yeah, 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 as mentioned earlier, as industries and even most organizations really right now navigate the what we call the new digital economy. Of course, it is expected that new challenges, new uncertainties, and new difficulties never encountered before loom in the horizon. And on the part of, it was mentioned nga by Kokoy that parang it has become a catch-up game. No? So as the BSP as the regulator of the financial system, we shall continue to forge ahead and undertake the necessary policy and supervisory responses, particularly revolving around, of course, not only fostering digital innovation, but also ensuring that there are vigorous cybersecurity measures and, of course, dynamic consumer protection mechanisms, of course, to address the issues of our consumers. And then, as mentioned by Coco, we will continue what we have started with respect to collaboration with the private sector, with government institutions, particularly covering information sharing, improving situational awareness so that we can do this together. We can address all of these cybersecurity threats and concerns. Maraming salamat, RJ.
All right, so a fantastic place to end today's discussion. Thank you once again to our speakers, Mr. Melchor Plabasan, Alan S. Cabanlong, Francisco Cocoy Claraval, Ana Margarita Miren Sanchez. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you all today. A huge thank you as well to our sponsor, Globe Business, and to our other partners, Asia Society Philippines, British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines, Management Association of the Philippines, Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Philippine Franchise Association, our media partner, the Philippine Star. Of course, to everyone who joined today's discussion, thank you. Pleasure. Please join us again in the next sessions of Business World Insights. You can follow Business World online to be updated on our webinars and other projects. Again, my name is RJ Balinbian. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much. I'll see you all again in the next session of Business World Insights. Good afternoon.
It was once all about the race. If you weren't ahead, you were out of the game. But when everything stopped, we saw the chance to change the game and begin a new path. This time, the bottom line won't be our finish line. This time, we'll chase investments whose real interest is care. This time, every step we take doesn't just change the world, but protects it. This time, our tech advancements will propel human betterment. This time, we will run the longer race, because the most rewarding pursuit is leaving a world greater than what it is.